Hey, welcome to That One Time, the place for unforgettable moments and stories worth sharing. Funny, touching, surprising, just like life itself. Grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Catherine grew up close to her father. When she was 6, her mother left her, moving to Italy with her new husband. In the 16 years that followed, she never once remembered her daughter's birthday. Now Kathy is 22, completing her university education and cherishing a dream of a banking career, just like her father. Or rather, of eventually taking his place at the helm of his financial empires. However, first, she had an internship in England, then in Belgium, and only after these stages did her father promise to bring her into his ranks. Her entire life, from the age of 9 to 17, was planned with astonishing precision. An elite gymnasium with intensive language study, music school classes, and grueling swimming training. Once a week, lessons with a tutor in economics and law were added to this. In such a frantic rhythm, the young girl had almost no time for personal relationships, for friendships, which her father was immensely pleased about. He guarded his daughter from outsiders with jealous vigilance, especially from members of the opposite sex, and even when Catherine became a student, he kept her every step under constant control. Kathy's only close friend was the neighbor girl, Helen. Their interactions were limited to the confines of either Helen's or Kathy's yard. This continued until a postgraduate student named Christopher arrived at their university. The young man was working on his dissertation and occasionally visited his academic advisor, who, by a strange twist of fate, happened to be the dean of Kathy's faculty. Their paths crossed at the dean's office door. Christopher was leaving, and Kathy was just about to enter. They literally bumped heads. Usually reserved and sensible, Kathy felt a sudden confusion at the sight of the stranger. Excuse me, I nearly knocked you over," the girl began to apologize. "No, it was I who almost knocked you down. Forgive me, please," the young man quickly replied. "Oh, how awkward. So inconvenient. Is Mr. Davis in?" "Yes, I'm just coming from his office. Please, go ahead." "Thank you." "Wait." The young man unexpectedly stopped her. "Perhaps as a sign of peace and mutual apologies, we could have a cup of coffee?" Kathy, unaccustomed to such attention, looked at the stranger in surprise. "Coffee?" she repeated. "Yes, don't you like coffee?" "Why wouldn't I like it? I do. It's just, somehow—" Kathy struggled to find the right word, not knowing how to explain that this was the first time she had been invited for coffee. Unexpected? Why unexpected? Such a beautiful girl as yourself must have heard such a suggestion many times. "Well, yes," Kathy replied, flustered, and to her own surprise she said, "All right, let's have coffee. Let's meet in about 20 minutes in the foyer." "Great, I'll be waiting for you." Kathy would remember the fluttery feeling that arose after meeting the young man for a long time. She had never experienced anything like it before, and it wasn't just her father's restrictions. No, she simply genuinely lacked the time, and now she was practically a graduate. England loomed on the horizon, and suddenly there was a strong desire to talk to the young man. After finishing her conversation with the dean, Kathy went down to the foyer where her new acquaintance was already waiting. "Sorry to keep you waiting, I'm a little late." Christopher almost dropped his briefcase. It was the first time he had seen a girl apologize for being 2 minutes late. He had waited longer, and the girls not only didn't apologize, but seemed not to know how to. "Nonsense, you're not late," the young man smiled. "Perhaps we should introduce ourselves." "Oh, how clumsy of me. I didn't even say my name." Kathy blushed again and extended her hand. "Catherine? Then I'm clumsy too. I didn't introduce myself either." The young man smiled and shook her hand. "Christopher. Very nice to meet you." Kathy smiled back and felt a blush flood her face at his touch. His hand was surprisingly soft, warm, and pleasant. Kathy felt a strong excitement and, frightened by these new, incomprehensible feelings, quickly pulled her hand away. Christopher interpreted this in his own way. "I'm sorry. Was my handshake unpleasant?" "No, it's just, we were shaking hands for a bit too long," Kathy tried to deflect. "Let's go get coffee." "Let's," Christopher agreed and smiled. He liked this unusual girl. They left the university building and stopped, somewhat confused. There were 4 cafes nearby, and the young people had to decide where to go. Kathy, accustomed to establishments of a completely different level, suggested without hesitation, "Let's go to Pegasus. We can have a proper lunch there. It's already the right time. Do you mind?" Christopher looked at his new acquaintance with even greater surprise. Pegasus. He only ever walked past such restaurants. He knew perfectly well that it was a special place, with prices, to put it mildly, far from budget-friendly. But admitting his modest financial situation to the girl was unbearably embarrassing, so he just nodded in agreement, struggling to imagine how he would pay in such an expensive place. But an even greater astonishment awaited Christopher inside the restaurant. Suddenly, it turned out that Catherine felt completely at home there. She had her favorite table, and the waiters greeted her like a distinguished guest. "Do you come to this restaurant often?" Christopher asked, surprised. "Yes, Dad and I often have lunch and dinner here. They have very good chefs. You don't have to worry about your stomach." "So you—" Dad says. "Ah, I see. That's good." Christopher began to feel nervous now. Of course, he understood that children from different families studied at the university, but Kathy didn't seem like a spoiled rich kid attending university just for a diploma and buying her exams. This didn't fit into his understanding. "Kathy, why did you choose such an unusual profession for a girl?" "Rather, the profession chose me," Kathy smiled. In this restaurant, she felt in her element, and it gave her a little confidence. With Christopher, it was the opposite. He grew up in a simple working-class family, but his parents recognized his abilities and insisted on him getting a good education. He even managed to get into university on a scholarship after the army and received an increased stipend. Then his talents were appreciated by his professors, and the guy, as they say, started to climb the ladder. And now, at 28, he was already writing his dissertation. "I see. Do your parents work in this field?" Christopher clarified. "Yes, Dad does. But honestly, I like this field too. I guess genetics played a role in choosing my profession. Although as a child, I dreamed of becoming an actress or a singer. Many girls dream of that in childhood, it's true. Christopher, let's order something, or I'll faint from hunger soon." "What do you like?" Kathy asked and handed him the menu. "To be honest, I'm not hungry," Christopher said, although he was starving. He definitely couldn't afford his lunch, but 2 coffees were perfectly fine. "Idiot! You'll have to pay for her lunch. You can't just say, 'Excuse me, Catherine, I'm only paying for my coffee.' Nightmare. Where am I going to get that much money?" Panic seized Christopher. Kathy, as if reading his thoughts, said, "Don't worry, lunch is on me. I invited you here myself. Order whatever you like, don't be shy." True, feeling like a poor freeloader was even more humiliating than just being poor. But Christopher genuinely liked this girl even before she brought him to this restaurant, and he really didn't know what to do. Kathy came to the rescue again. "Christopher, listen, it's okay. Don't make me feel awkward for inviting you here. I truly did it purely out of habit." "All right, then next time I'll invite and I'll pay. Deal?" "Next time?" Kathy couldn't believe what she heard. "Of course, if you accept my invitation." "Certainly I will," the girl replied shyly. Kathy couldn't imagine yet how she would manage this or what she would tell her father. She simply wasn't thinking about it right now. She just wanted to prolong her time with this nice young man as long as possible. He was surprisingly interesting, intelligent, and educated. They spoke the same language and understood each other perfectly. About half an hour into their conversation, her phone rang, and Kathy suddenly remembered that she hadn't called her father after classes. She grabbed her phone. "Hi, Pop. Sorry, I got a little delayed. I was just about to call you." She rattled into the receiver. "Hello, dear. Where are you now?" her father asked. "Stop by our restaurant for lunch." "Excellent. I'll be there in half an hour. Please wait for me." "Yes, okay, I'll wait." Kathy looked at the phone in fright, then at Christopher, and put the device back in her purse, confused. "Something's wrong?" Christopher understood from the girl's expression. "I don't even know how to say it. My father will be here in half an hour." "Is he strict?" "Very." This was an understatement, but Kathy changed her mind. How to put it? Not very, but a little strict. "Are you afraid he'll see us together?" Christopher realized. Kathy looked at her new acquaintance hopefully. She so wanted to sit with him longer, just talk. But how could she explain this to Dad? I won't be able to explain who you are to him, Kathy stammered out. Does he forbid you from seeing boys? The young man showed his perceptiveness again. Yes, Kathy exhaled. I understand. That's not a problem. Let's meet another time. I understand what a strict parent is like. Don't worry and don't be upset. We will definitely have lunch or dinner together again. He took a pen and notebook from his briefcase, wrote his number on a piece of paper, and handed it to Kathy. Call me when you have a chance to meet. Okay, I definitely will. I'll find a way, Kathy said and added a little quieter. I'm sorry this happened, and thank you for understanding. I'm really embarrassed. It's all right, I'll go. Nice meeting you, Kitty. It was very nice meeting you too, Kathy smiled back, although in reality she wanted to cry from annoyance that their conversation was cut short so quickly. After Christopher left, Kathy just sat, looking out the window. She was waiting for her father. Maybe I should talk to him honestly. Tell him I met a guy. He's not some homeless person. He's a postgraduate student, so he's smart. Dad should like him. Kathy comforted herself, and then immediately argued with herself. Yeah, and if I remember Alex, I don't even want to introduce them. Alex was a guy who once came to visit their neighbors. He was only a couple of years older than Kathy. They were 15 and 17 respectively at the time. But Dad decided that Alex was too persistent towards Kathy and simply showed him the door. Yes, he just took him and kicked him out of the house. And he told Kathy no dates or meetings until she finished her education, but now she practically had her diploma in hand. Maybe Dad had changed his attitude and it was okay now? Kathy decided to take a risk and talk to her father honestly. Her father arrived exactly half an hour after the call. You could always set your watch by him. What was surprising was that even when stuck in traffic, he could accurately predict his arrival time. Mr. Stephen, that was Catherine's father's name, came to the table and kissed his daughter on the cheek. Hello, darling. How are things at the university? How's your mood? Hi, Pop. I need to talk to you. Kathy decided to get straight to the point, fearing her resolve would soon leave her. Important? Her father clarified. Probably. Kathy evaded a direct answer. Well, I have something important to talk to you about too. Who goes first? Can I? Kathy asked for permission, not even guessing what her father wanted to tell her. Of course, sunshine. I'm listening carefully. What's wrong? You see, it's like this. Remember you told me not to see anyone until I finished my education? I remember, her father replied and smiled. It seems our thoughts have aligned. Seriously? Kathy was prematurely delighted. That's great. Anyway, I met a guy today. He's a postgraduate student, writing his dissertation with my dean. We talked a bit. He's a very interesting, educated young man. He's 28, served in the army, earns his own living, and is writing a very serious dissertation. Mr. Stevens' face changed, and he frowned more and more. Kathy saw that the story wasn't interesting her father, but what he said next was something Catherine herself didn't like at all. What's the point of this story? Her father clarified. I wanted to ask for your permission to see Christopher. You won't object, will you? I'm leaving for England in 2 months, and I'd like to relax a bit after studying and just spend time with a nice young man. You will have such an opportunity. That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. Her father began in a tone that made Kathy uneasy. You've finished your education. You have internships in Europe ahead of you, and it won't be very good if you go there as an unmarried girl. Therefore, I would like to introduce you to a very interesting young man. His name is Nicholas. He's older than you, of course, but he's smart, well off, promising, and he will be a reliable protection and support for you. Kathy looked at her father in surprise. She didn't understand what he was talking about. He's seen you, and he likes you very much. We've already discussed all the details and nuances of your life together. We are both satisfied. All that remains is for you to meet and set the wedding date. Pop, wait! What wedding? I don't want to marry a bag of money. I want to marry for love. Kathy tried to object. No problem. You'll see him and fall in love immediately. He's a very decent and attractive man. I don't need decent, attractive. I need someone I choose with my heart. Listen to me, child. I already chose your mother with my heart, and how did that end? What does that have to do with anything? It has to do with the fact that you should choose with your mind, not your heart. The heart is a bad advisor, a very bad one. But I don't want to live with someone I don't like. Why have you decided you won't like him? Pop, how old is he? 32, only 10 years older than you. Is that a lot? No, Kathy said honestly. Dad, but I like Christopher. Listen, you saw this Christopher for the first time in your life today. It's quite possible that you won't like him at all upon closer acquaintance. Besides, for comparison, you can meet Nicholas, and then you can decide for yourself who you like more. Nicholas might appeal to you, or will you reject him from the start just because I'm suggesting him? No, of course not. I'll definitely meet him. It's just unexpected. Agreed, unexpected. I myself haven't gotten used to the idea of you getting married yet. I'm not getting married yet, Kathy objected. But you might. Her father corrected himself, although it was clear he had already made up his mind. Dad, can I ask one more question? Of course. What if I really don't like Nicholas, and Christopher turns out to be a good person? Can I marry Christopher? Mr. Stephen looked at his daughter in surprise, as if mentally asking, Are you seriously asking this question, or just mocking me? Of course not. But he said something else aloud. I think you can. But I also need to meet your Christopher and see him. Okay, thank you. Thank you for what? For hope? Hope! Hope! Her father said thoughtfully. Everyone has a right to hope. But life often throws such curveballs, and hopes don't come true. That's the truth of life, alas. I don't like that kind of truth, Kathy said with childish resentment. All right, let's have lunch. Then we'll go home. And by evening, you need to get ready. Nicholas will be here. He's coming today? Kathy couldn't believe it. Of course. Why delay? You need to at least get to know each other a little before the wedding. Get used to each other. At that moment, Kathy clearly realized that her father wouldn't even consider other candidates. He had already decided everything, and no Christopher, William, or Andrew had a single chance because a certain Nicholas had already been appointed to the role of husband. This was the most offensive part. Kathy was deprived not only of hope, but also of the right to choose. Kathy drove home in a terrible mood. It felt as if a steamroller had run over her. She was simply crushed. Kathy knew her father's character well and understood that further discussion on this topic was pointless. The only thing she would achieve was that her father would increase control and the possibility of meeting Christopher would disappear without a trace. And Kathy really didn't want that. So she decided to play along with her father, to pretend that she liked Nicholas. Her father would relax and let down his guard, which Kathy would definitely take advantage of. Kathy waited for the evening with unusual excitement. On the one hand, she was curious to see the man her father intended for her husband. On the other hand, she was afraid of what would happen if she absolutely didn't like him. After all, no arguments worked on her father if a decision had already been made. Nicholas was supposed to arrive at 8. Her father told Kathy to be ready and dress festively. Kathy didn't object and got completely ready. She even wanted to make an impression on the unwelcome guest. Nicholas arrived exactly at 8, as befits a polite and punctual gentleman. Kathy descended from the second floor, feeling very nervous. She entered the living room and saw Nicholas standing half-turned. A tall, well-built, very handsome young man. He turned around and Kathy froze in place. On his left cheek, he had a huge scar, starting below his eye and ending on his lower jaw. The scar was deep and very noticeable. How awful, Kathy thought, barely restraining herself from saying it aloud. Kitty, my dear, meet Nicholas, my partner in some financial matters. I turned to Nicholas. Nick, this is my beautiful daughter, Kitty. Meet each other, and I need to leave you for a couple of minutes. Her father left, and Kathy stood rooted to the spot at the entrance to the living room. She simply couldn't move from the shock. Nicholas began to approach, and Kathy wanted to scream and call for help, but she, of course, didn't do that because it would have looked extremely foolish. Very pleased to meet you, Catherine. Mr. Stephen has told me a lot about you. Likewise, but I'm meeting you for the first time today, Kathy said sarcastically. Nicholas pretended not to notice the sarcasm in her words and gestured towards the sofa. Shall we sit? Let's. When they sat down on the sofa, with Kathy sitting a meter away from the guest, Nicholas looked at the girl searchingly and unexpectedly said directly, "Kitty, I know what role is intended for you. I understand your doubts about me. My appearance frightens and repels you. I plan to have a series of plastic surgeries to get rid of this disfigurement, but I simply won't have time to do it before the wedding. You might ask why I didn't have the operations earlier. I answer, first, there was no financial opportunity, then no time, then no necessity. Now all three components are present, and I am ready to go to a surgeon. So if this bothers you, don't worry. It will be positively resolved soon." Kathy looked at the potential groom in silence. She didn't even know what to say to him. Interesting. Will he always talk to himself? Or will I be able to get a word in sometimes? Kathy thought with a smirk for some reason. Did something amuse you? Nicholas didn't understand. No, forgive me. I was thinking about something else, Kathy deflected. Although she knew she was behaving improperly, and to smooth things over, she decided to support him. It's great that you decided to have the operation. Some people are so afraid of surgeons that they just accept it and live like that. To be honest, I had long since accepted it too. But I understand that a young girl would be uncomfortable being around such a disfigured person, so I decided to have the operation. You're not, Kathy began. Is it just that the scar is very noticeable, and that's why you were startled seeing me face on? Nicholas asked. I wasn't exactly startled, I just didn't expect it. And she mentally cursed her father. He could have warned me. It's all right, I'm not offended. I'm used to this reaction from girls. He's kind of strange. If he saw girls' reactions, why didn't he have the operation earlier? 6 months? A year ago? He didn't get rich yesterday, Kathy reasoned. Catherine, tell me, what are you interested in? What do you like? I'd like to know more about you. Kathy briefly told him about her childhood, hobbies, and clubs. Nicholas listened attentively, as if mentally recording the information. That's what you were forced to do. I'm asking what you like for your soul. What music, what movies, what cuisine do you prefer? Kathy looked at Nicholas in surprise. Why are you so surprised by my question? I didn't think you'd be interested, Kathy said honestly. She was beginning to like this man simply as a person. Of course, just like there was no hint of love. Kathy, I'm not some monster or Bluebeard. I'm a normal person, and I really do like you very much. I first saw you 3 years ago at an event. You were with your father, and since then, I haven't been able to forget you. I would very much like to make you happy, Nicholas said, looking directly into her eyes. If you allow me, of course. Kathy was silent, not knowing what to answer. If you absolutely don't like me or find me repulsive, I won't pursue you or anything else. I will withdraw. But I would very much like to have a small chance. After all, everyone has the right to hope. The last phrase was decisive for Catherine. Just today, she had said the same thing. All right, let's try. Thank you. He leaned over and kissed her hand. Nicholas, let's switch to you informal. It's much more comfortable to talk that way, and it does bring people closer, Catherine suggested. I would be very happy if you would use the informal you with me. The man smiled sincerely. Then you can just call me Nick and I'll call you Kathy. The girl smiled back. Her father returned and they went to dinner. At the table, the men did most of the talking. Kathy sat silently, observing what was happening, and at the same time, thinking about how she could meet Christopher the next day. In the morning, Kathy dialed Christopher's number. He answered almost immediately. Yes? A confident voice sounded. Hello, Christopher. Catherine greeted him hesitantly. Kitty. He recognized the girl immediately. I'm so glad you called. How are you? Were there any problems with your father yesterday because of me? No, everything's fine, don't worry. Can we meet today? Of course, I'd be very happy to. I'm completely free after 1 o'clock. Great. Then let's meet at 2 in the Central Park, by the fountain. Agreed? I'll be looking forward to seeing you. Kathy had just hung up when there was a knock at the door, and her father entered. Good morning, darling. How are you? How did you sleep? Good morning, Pop. Everything's fine. What are your plans for today? I want to go to the salon and change my hairstyle. For some reason, I feel like changing my style. You know, new life, new hairstyle. That's what girls usually do. You don't mind, do you? No, of course not. I didn't get a chance to ask you yesterday. What did you think of Nicholas? You know, I liked him, Kathy said honestly. Very intelligent and attentive. See, I told you. When are you meeting? Hopefully tomorrow, Kathy lied. Hopefully, her father repeated. That's good. I think if you call him, it won't be a big deal. He said he'd call me himself today, and we'd arrange where to meet. This was true. They had indeed agreed on that. Excellent. I'm very glad, daughter. He's a very good man. I think so too. Thank you, Daddy. Kathy got out of bed, went over to her father, and kissed him on the cheek. You're a clever girl. I always knew that. Once I place you in reliable hands, I'll be at ease. All right, run along to the shower. I'll see you for breakfast. Kathy went to the shower, rejoicing at her own resourcefulness along the way. After breakfast, she returned to her room and began sorting through her wardrobe. She needed to choose an outfit that Christopher would like, but at the same time wouldn't raise questions from the staff, who, of course, reported everything to her father. If Kathy wore something too beautiful and dressy, the question would inevitably arise, why go to the salon dressed like that? So Kathy, without much thought, decided to wear light cotton trousers and a light t-shirt that nicely emphasized her neckline but still looked quite casual. Around 1 o'clock, Kathy left the house. She decided to use public transport and not call a taxi. Kathy rarely traveled by bus or minibus. Her father objected, but today she decided, go big or go home, and she took the bus. Kathy looked out the window with interest. Passers-by walked by, each busy with their own affairs. They didn't care at all about what was happening in Kathy's soul. And in the girl's soul, a real storm of emotions was raging. She was trying to decide what to do and how to secretly meet Christopher. And although he hadn't yet suggested meeting, Kathy felt that he definitely would. After reaching the Central Park by bus, Kathy got off and slowly walked towards the fountain. From a distance, she already saw Christopher's familiar figure. He was looking around. In his hands, he held a huge bouquet of roses. Where will I put them later? It's a shame to throw them away, Kathy thought sadly. Christopher noticed the girl and waved. Kathy came closer. Hi, she said simply. Good afternoon. I'm so glad to see you. Me too, Kathy smiled. Shall we switch to you informal right away? Let's. Shall we walk around or go sit somewhere? Let's better sit somewhere, Kathy suggested. She understood perfectly well that walking around the park in the city center was not the best idea. Too many people knew her and could easily report to her father. And the place Christopher would take her to was unlikely to be frequented by people from her circle. She could relax there and not worry. Great. Today I'm inviting you, treating you, remember? Of course. Where shall we go? How about pizza? Christopher suggested. With pleasure, I love pizza, Kathy agreed. She was a little nervous, thinking about exactly where they would go. Kathy had a very sensitive stomach, so she was careful about choosing cafes and restaurants. But to Catherine's surprise, Christopher took her to a rather well-known and good pizzeria. What kind of pizza do you like? Christopher asked. With ham, mushrooms, and extra cheese, Kathy smiled, and definitely with a cheese crust. Christopher's mouth fell open in surprise. No way! Are you kidding? What do you mean? Kathy didn't understand. That's my favorite pizza. Then we have the same taste, Kathy smiled. They ordered a huge pizza and a glass of apple juice each. As it turned out, their tastes coincided in this too. Kathy didn't like any exotic fruits, except perhaps pineapple, and preferred apple juice. Christopher said he hadn't drunk any juice other than apple juice since childhood. They talked a lot. The conversation was easy and very pleasant. It turned out that their tastes coincided not only in terms of pizza and juice, they had so much in common that it felt like they were Siamese twins. That doesn't happen, Kathy said, for people to be so similar. I used to think so too, Christopher smiled. They were so happy together, and despite the presence of other visitors, it seemed to them that there was no one else around. Kathy came to when her phone rang. It was her father calling. Hi, how's your hair? Are you still recognizable? Her father joked. Kathy suddenly realized that she needed to change her haircut somehow, otherwise she wouldn't be able to explain to her father where she had been all this time. But when she looked at her watch, she was even more frightened. It was already 6 in the evening. Yes, for now, Pop. Not right now, it's a little inconvenient to talk. Can I call you back later? Yes, of course. I just wanted to see how you were and tell you that I'm leaving tomorrow for 3 days on business. Did I tell you? I don't remember. I hope you and Nicholas behave yourselves. There was definitely irony in his voice, but also concern. Don't worry, Pop, I promise you. Everything will be perfectly fine. Kathy could barely contain her joy. 3 days. She would have 3 whole days with Christopher. Good. Should I pick you up from the salon or are you coming back yourself? Her father clarified. No need, Pop. I won't be done for a while. I'll take a taxi. All right. See you at home. Kathy put her phone back in her purse and looked at Christopher. Never before would she have said or done what she was about to say and do in the coming days. What are your plans for the next couple of days? Kathy asked directly. None for now. I'm on vacation, don't have to go to work, just quietly writing my dissertation. Why do you ask? We can spend the next 2 days together. Then, Kathy paused but didn't know how to continue. Then I'm leaving for a long time, for a year, to England for an internship. That's a shame. I'll miss you and I'll wait. I'll wait a lot. Christopher, do you have a place where no one could see us or find us? Kathy ignored his words. My parents' dacha. They're only there on weekends and not always then. And tomorrow is Thursday, so we can go there. We have a very nice dacha, my grandfather built it. It was clear that Christopher was nervous. He was an adult and understood perfectly well why a girl would want to be alone with a guy. He certainly liked the idea, but he didn't expect things to move so quickly. Even less did he expect the initiative to come from such a modest girl. And like Kathy, he couldn't know why she really wanted to speed up this moment. Very good. I'll buy groceries, get a taxi, and pick you up around 11. Is that okay? Kathy had never been so decisive and confident, as if some inner force was telling her what to do and how to act. Yes, of course. Great. Text me the address. Actually, no, I'll call you from the taxi. Kathy was terribly nervous. She herself was shocked by her behavior, but she felt that this was exactly what she had to do. Kathy, are you sure everything is all right? Christopher worried. He saw her state and felt that she was somehow different. Yes, everything's fine, Christopher. I need to go now. We'll definitely talk tomorrow. I'm sorry. Yes, of course, no problem. I'll be waiting for your call tomorrow. Kathy stood up, looked at Christopher and smiled mysteriously. See you tomorrow, and thank you for a wonderful lunch. Kathy left the pizzeria and headed towards the center. There were several salons there that she occasionally visited. She needed to urgently update her hairstyle so as not to arouse her father's suspicion. Her phone rang. It was Nicholas calling. Good evening, Catherine. How are you? How's your mood? Hi, sorry, it's not convenient to talk right now. I'm at the salon. Can I call you back later? Yes, of course. Enjoy your transformation. Kathy went into the salon. By a stroke of luck, the stylist Kathy occasionally went to was free. Kathy asked her to shorten her hair a little and cut it differently, and at the same time handed her the bouquet of flowers. It would be a shame to throw them away after all. These are for you, just to lift your spirits, Kathy said. Thank you so much, Catherine. Are you sure about your decision? You have a very beautiful hairstyle right now. It suits you. Chloe, please, just do as I ask. All right, as you say. The girl, not understanding anything, agreed. Kathy got her hairstyle changed, called a taxi, and went home. Her father was already home. Seeing his daughter, he waved to her from the gazebo in the garden. Kitty, come show off your transformation. Kathy entered the gazebo. Her father critically examined her new hairstyle and summarized, Not bad, interesting, well done, it suits you. Thanks, Pop. Are you hungry? No, I had a snack in the city. I'm going to my room, I'm very tired. All these beauty treatments are terribly exhausting, Kathy lied. Women have their own problems and difficulties, what can you do? Beauty requires sacrifice. Go, sunshine, rest. I'll drop by later. Okay, I'll be waiting for you, Kathy replied and hurried to her room. She needed to figure out how to leave for 2 days tomorrow without arousing suspicion from the staff, and most importantly, what story to invent so that the housekeeper, Mrs. Peterson, would believe her and not tell her father. This was the most difficult part of her plan. Kathy lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, inventing tall tales. So far, none of the versions were suitable, and she needed to think fast. She called her neighbor Helen. Hi, are you very busy? Hi, Kathy. No. What's up? Nellie, I need your help. You're a master at these things. Can you come over? I'll be right there, no problem, Nellie was intrigued. Helen was indeed a master. She had repeatedly gone away to visit boyfriends for a day or two and always came up with such plausible stories that even her parents believed her. Now all of Kathy's hope rested on Nellie's talent for storytelling. Helen arrived 10 minutes later. Meeting Mr. Stephen in the garden, she easily lied that she urgently needed Kathy herself and went straight to her friend's room. "So, what's going on with you?" she asked from the doorway. "Come in, close the door," Kathy asked. Helen, unlike Kathy, lived life to the fullest. She had dropped out of university after 3 years, claiming she hadn't decided on a profession. Her parents indulged her and allowed her to take a break. Nellie was a late child, which meant she had been spoiled since birth, and the girl did whatever she wanted. True, she wasn't rude, didn't hang out with strange crowds, didn't drink much, and didn't smoke at all. She just loved nightclubs and fun company. "Nellie, I need your help," Kathy began. "I figured that much. What specifically?" "I need to run away from home for 2 days, but I don't know how to do it without arousing suspicion from the staff and questions from my father. He absolutely must not know about it, understand?" Helen looked at her friend intently for about 2 minutes. Kathy was starting to get nervous about why she was silent for so long. "And will you tell me why?" curious Nellie asked. Kathy hesitated. She didn't want to tell anyone, but she knew that if she didn't tell Helen, she simply wouldn't help. And without her help, Kathy definitely wouldn't manage. "I'll tell you a secret. Just don't tell anyone, okay?" "My lips are sealed," Helen swore, using her favorite phrase. And Kathy told her friend about Christopher and about her father's decision to marry her off to a man with a terrible scar. Helen listened in silence, only occasionally waving her hands in indignation. When Kathy finished her story about her plans for tomorrow, Helen finally said, "Simple, and I don't understand how you agreed to get married at all. Nell, you know my father. It's useless. So maybe you should run away with this Christopher." Helen suggested the idea. That's what she would definitely do, but Kathy couldn't. She understood that perfectly well. "I can't. I love Dad very much. I have no one else but him. How can I leave him?" "Yes, I understand. Listen." Helen lowered her voice to a whisper. "Do I understand correctly that you want to immediately move to the next level of relationship with this Christopher?" Kathy blushed with embarrassment and nodded silently. "Gorgeous!" Nellie exclaimed. "Are you that smitten with him?" "Nell, I just want the first man I'm with to be someone I really like, not this Nicholas. He's not a bad guy, generally speaking, but he doesn't make me feel the way Christopher does." "Wait, so he'll be your first?" Helen couldn't believe what she heard. "Wow, you're a rarity, Kat. At 22. Amazing. And when and with whom could I? I was always under total control. It was impossible to even go to the movies." "Well, yes, your father definitely went overboard with the control." "Oh well, I'll think about it now," Helen said. She thought for exactly 10 seconds, then suddenly jumped up and ran out of the room. "Uncle Stephen! Uncle Stephen! Can I have a word?" Kathy heard Nellie's voice. For a moment, she even got scared. What if Nellie told her father everything? But why would she? Kathy asked herself. No, Nellie's not like that. She's great and a true friend. 5 minutes later, Helen and her father entered the room. Nellie looked triumphant. Kathy had no idea what she had come up with, but she knew that her plan, as always, had worked. "Sunshine, why didn't you ask me yourself?" Her father asked a question Kathy didn't know how to answer. Helen immediately jumped into the conversation. "Uncle Stephen, I just wasn't sure myself if it would work out, but now it's definite, and I ran to Kitty. So, are you letting us go?" "Yes, of course, especially since I'm also leaving for 3 days. Have a good time, girls. This is your time." "Did Kathy tell you she's getting married?" "Yes, she already bragged," Nellie said enviously. "Well, there you go. So when else can she relax with her friend if not now? I think it's the perfect time." "Thank you very much, Uncle Stephen. We'll be good girls," Nellie gushed. Her father left the room and closed the door. Kathy looked at Nellie, stunned. "What did you tell him?" "You're a lucky friend." Nellie smiled, pleased. "The thing is, I'm going to my friend's dacha by the lake in the Moscow region for 3 days tomorrow, and I asked him to let you go there too, like I'd be bored and all that. Uncle Stephen didn't even try to object. He was even happy that you'd be under my supervision these days. That worked out great. I'm really lucky. I owe you one. Thank you so much. Oh, stop it, it's fine. Have a blast there. Don't forget to buy some wine, or better yet, champagne, caring Helen advised. The girls agreed to leave at 10. Kathy would have just enough time to stop by the supermarket for groceries and pick up Christopher at 11. So far, everything was going according to plan. Kathy thanked Helen 5 times for her help, said goodbye, and went to pack her things. Now she could prepare confidently without fearing her father's questions. When Kathy finished packing her things in her backpack, her father came into the room. Not asleep? No, Pop, come in. Kitty, I don't know how to say this, he began, but for some reason fell silent. This silence scared Kathy. She didn't know what exactly her father wanted to talk about, and it made her nervous. You'll be getting married soon, and you'll have your first wedding night. I know you've never been with anyone. You haven't, have you? No, Pop, I haven't. But I don't want to talk about it. Honestly, I've read books. I only know what you want to say. Let's leave this between me and my future husband. I think we're adults and can figure it out ourselves. And it's too early to talk about it anyway. I'm not getting married tomorrow. Kathy deliberately didn't say between me and Nicholas. Deep down, she harbored a hope that things could still change. What if? Are you sure? Her father clarified. Yes, Dad, I'm sure. All right, then let's drop the subject. I'm leaving early tomorrow. I won't wake you up. You and Helen look out for each other. Behave yourselves. Pop, everything will be fine. Don't worry. Kathy hugged and kissed her father. She truly loved him very much and was grateful for everything he did for her, for everything except choosing her groom. In the morning, Kathy woke up at the crack of dawn, the excitement of the upcoming event keeping her awake. She quickly took a shower and went down for breakfast. Then she returned to her room and checked one more time to make sure she had packed everything. At 9:30, Kathy stood in the yard with her backpack in her hands. Helen, seeing her from her window, laughed. She waved to her friend and indicated that she would be out in 5 minutes. Kathy called a taxi. The friends got into the car and left. Helen was dropped off along the way, and Kathy went to the hypermarket for groceries. After stocking up thoroughly, as if planning a feast and buying various delicacies, Kathy grabbed 2 bottles of champagne and headed for the checkout. Already sitting in the taxi, she called Christopher. He answered immediately and said he was waiting for her near his building entrance. After picking up Christopher, they drove to the dacha. Christopher's family dacha was located in an amazingly beautiful place. The dacha itself was small but very cozy and well-maintained. A small 2-story wooden house, efficiently arranged inside, surprised Kathy. She had imagined that a dacha would look like something out of a movie, semi-abandoned. But no, the dacha was very nice with all the amenities. There was even a fireplace in the house. The guys unloaded their things and all the grocery bags and went into the house. Kitty, is someone coming to visit us? Christopher smiled. What do you mean? Kathy didn't understand the question. Well, there are enough groceries here for a crowd that you could feed until they burst for at least a couple of days. I just didn't know what we'd want, so I bought all sorts of different things. I see, a thrifty girl, Christopher praised. Kathy was putting away the groceries at that moment. Suddenly, she stopped and looked intently at the young man. Christopher even froze under her gaze. He felt as if Kathy was scanning him. Kitty, are you all right? Yes, Kathy replied briefly and continued putting the groceries in the refrigerator. You seem very tense. A little, Kathy admitted honestly. Christopher came up to her, took her hand, and took the ham from her hand. He pulled her towards him. Kitty, my dear, don't worry. Everything will be all right with us, you'll see. He hugged and kissed the girl for a long time. Kathy melted in his arms. They forgot about the groceries and the champagne and everything else in the world, and just enjoyed each other. Kathy lay on the pillow, looking at the ceiling. She felt very good. Kitty, do you absolutely have to go to England? Unfortunately, yes, for 6 months. Then to Belgium for the same amount of time. Everything is already arranged and paid for. My father will never agree to cancel this trip. although I want to go there less than anywhere else right now." Tears streamed from Kathy's eyes. Christopher sensed the girl's state and propped himself up to kiss her. And Kathy was torn from within by a dilemma. Should she tell him about Nicholas or not? The girl decided to postpone this conversation for later. She didn't want to spoil the moment. "Sweetheart, don't worry. I'll wait for you, I promise. We can chat on messengers 10 times a day if you like. I'm an adult and I can certainly wait a year and wait for my beloved." How pleasant his words sounded. My beloved. But Kathy knew he wouldn't have to wait. Or rather, there would be no one to wait for. Because Kathy would become someone else's wife, and he would be the one waiting for her return from the trip. This realization made things even worse, and Kathy cried even louder. Christopher, not understanding the real reasons for her tears, continued to promise to wait for her return, and Kathy couldn't bear it anymore. "Christopher, I have to tell you something. It's very important. I don't want to lie to you, so it's better to tell you now, so I don't suffer and torment myself so much." She told him about her father's decision, about Nicholas, about how no one would listen to her, and about how they had no chance of being together. A stunned Christopher looked at Kathy and couldn't understand how such a thing could happen in the modern world. "Kitty, this is like the Middle Ages. What do you mean your father chose a groom for you and won't let you be with someone else? What about your feelings and desires? Does he not care at all how you'll live with him? I understand your indignation. I completely agree with it. But I really have no choice. Let's run away together." "Where? How? What about your dissertation?" "To hell with the dissertation. You're more important to me. I want to be with you. I feel like you're my soulmate. I've known you for 3 days, but it feels like a lifetime. Kitty, please, let's run away. Your father will forgive you later. He's your father after all." "I can't do that, I just can't." "But there's another option. I'll introduce you to my father and try to convince him to give you a chance. That's a more realistic option than just cowardly running away." "Why cowardly? We're running away because you're being forced to marry someone you don't love. Those are different things. Rearranging the terms doesn't change the sum, you know. Running away is always cowardice, I think. And it doesn't matter what the motives are. I'm not used to running away and I don't want to. Let's try to fight. If it doesn't work out, then we'll think about what to do next." "All right, agreed. But remember, my offer stands." "Thank you. I'm glad you understood me." Kathy kissed Christopher and they dissolved into each other again. For all 3 days they spent together, they were practically inseparable. It seemed that Kathy felt that her father wouldn't allow her to be with the one she loved. "Listen, you know what I was thinking?" Kathy suddenly said. "If Dad doesn't let us be together, we can still see each other, right? Are you suggesting we become lovers? You want me to share you with that scarred monster?" "Of course not. It's just another backup option." "Sorry, but I don't like that option. I'd rather take you to Siberia than share you with someone else." "I understand." "Okay," Kathy said, disappointed. She didn't want to go home, but she had to. They called a taxi and returned to the city. Christopher got out first, and then Kathy went home. She had completely forgotten that she was supposed to return with Helen, as the girls had agreed. Pulling up to the house, she got out of the car and slowly walked towards the door. At that moment, her phone rang. It was Helen calling. "Friend, where are you?" Hi, Nellie. I just walked into the yard. I'm back." "Where are you? Are you crazy? We were supposed to come back together." Helen attacked her. "Well, let's say you stopped by some other friend's place on urgent business." Kathy invented an excuse without batting an eye. "Wow, the student has surpassed the teacher." Helen was surprised. "You learn fast." "Nellie, I feel so bad." "What happened?" I saw." "No, he's the best. I just really don't want to go back to this atmosphere. And Nicholas is coming today. I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself, and I'll tell him to get lost." "All right, listen to my command. Don't tell anyone off and wait for me. Got it? Don't do anything stupid until I get back. I'll be there in about 2 hours." "Okay," Kathy agreed resignedly. She entered the house, where a surprise awaited her. Her father and Nicholas were sitting in the living room. The last thing Kathy wanted right now was to put on a show and be polite to Nicholas. "Hi everyone," Kathy said indifferently. Her father, seeing his daughter's state, jumped up from the sofa and went over to her. Kitty darling, are you all right? Yes, Pop, I'm fine. I think I'm getting sick, Kathy lied easily again. It seemed she was getting the hang of it. Go up to your room, lie down. Mrs. Peterson will be here soon. Tell her what you want. I'm terribly sleepy, just about to pass out. I'll call her later. All right, dear, get some sleep, of course. Then her father remembered his future son-in-law and said quietly, Oh, Nicholas is waiting for you there. At least say hello. Kathy slowly walked over to Nicholas and waved. Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. Thank you, I'm fine. But you don't seem to be. Perhaps you caught a cold. Do you want anything? Tell me, I'll do anything. Kathy wanted to reply that she very much wanted him to disappear from her life forever, but she knew he meant something completely different, so she replied delicately, No, I don't need anything, thank you. Sorry, I'm going to go. Yes, of course. Get well soon. Kathy went up to her room, collapsed onto the bed, and burst into tears. She didn't know what to do now, how to live. Christopher had clearly said he would never agree to be a lover, and Kathy was unlikely to become his wife. How could she live without the one she loved? There was only one hope left, to try to persuade her father. But what could she come up with to make him agree to meet Christopher? Kathy didn't know the answer to any of these questions, and so she cried herself to sleep. Catherine woke up around 6 in the evening. Helen had probably come by, but she had been told that Kathy was asleep. She called her friend. Will you come over? Are you really sick? Helen asked. More like feeling down. Nellie, I don't know what to do. Maybe you, genius, can come up with something. Oh, this is complicated. I can't go against your father, I'm sorry. I can only support you, cover for you sometimes. But other than that, I don't know how else to help. All right, I'll be there soon. The girls discussed the situation for almost 2 hours, but couldn't come up with a solution. Helen genuinely felt sorry for Kathy. She saw that her friend was suffering and restless, but she didn't know how to help her. 2 weeks passed. All this time, Kathy pretended to be sick, regularly communicated with Christopher, and completely ignored Nicholas. Her father didn't pressure her, believing his daughter was ill. On the eve of the weekend, Kathy finally decided to talk to her father and asked for a meeting with Christopher. Her father looked at his daughter in surprise. Excuse me, but why do I need to meet him? You seem to have made your choice, or haven't you? No, Kathy said honestly and resolutely. What about Nicholas? First, he hasn't proposed anything to me yet. Second, I haven't promised him anything. Pop, I'm asking you, please, talk to Christopher. He's a very good person. You'll see for yourself. All right, her father gave in. Let him come over for dinner tonight around 7. Thank you, Daddy. Kathy rushed to him, hugged and kissed him. She ran to her room to call the one she loved and share the good news. Christopher didn't share Kathy's joy. He sensed some trick from her father, and he wasn't wrong. When Christopher arrived for dinner, Nicholas arrived right after him. Her father had played a clever move and also invited the potential son-in-law for dinner. Kathy was furious. She hadn't expected this from her father. Dad, why did you do this? I asked you to talk to Christopher, not set up a circus. No circus. I just want to hear from both contenders, who can offer what kind of future for you. As a father, I have the right and the duty to know what awaits my daughter, who she will live with, in what house, and under what conditions. Everything is absolutely fair and transparent. If someone is afraid or has nothing to offer, there will be no conversation. Kathy understood everything. Her father had deliberately agreed to this meeting not just to refuse Kathy herself, but to humiliate Christopher, so that the young man wouldn't even think of trying to win Catherine over. It was mean, very mean. She left the study and slammed the door. Christopher and Nicholas were sitting in the living room. They were silent, waiting for the host and his daughter to appear. Kathy entered the living room and stopped, looking at the two men who were vying for her hand and heart. One was infinitely dear to Catherine herself. The other was liked by her father. At the sight of Catherine, both stood up and waited. Her father followed, looking extremely displeased. Good evening, gentlemen, her father began immediately. We are gathered here to decide one important matter for all of us. It sounded foolish and pompous. Kathy felt sick from what was happening, but she clearly couldn't influence or change the situation. So both of you gentlemen dream of seeing my daughter as your wife, her father continued. But since there are two contenders for my Catherine's heart, a choice must be made. This choice will be made by me, not her. Girls choose with their hearts and often don't think about tomorrow, only about today. Therefore, this task falls to me. I'm listening. What can you offer my daughter? What future? How will you impress? Kathy looked at her father and seemed to forget how to breathe. At that moment, she didn't see him. She turned her gaze to Christopher. She felt physically pained for him. His face was pale. He clearly hadn't expected such humiliation. Christopher abruptly stood up and looked first at Mr. Stephen, then at Kathy, and then back at the potential father-in-law. I will not participate in this pompous circus. If you believe that your daughter will be happy with the one you choose, then that is the biggest mistake of your life. I understand that to achieve such a level of wealth as yours, you have to step over people. But to step over your own daughter and disregard her feelings, that's too much even for someone like you. Good day. Christopher headed for the door, stopped near Catherine, and said quietly, "One last offer. Let's leave here. Come with me. You see what's happening, don't you?" "I can't," Kathy said through tears. "Then goodbye. You've made your choice." Christopher went out and slammed the door loudly. The crockery even rattled from the bang, and tears streamed from Kathy's eyes. She felt so unwell that her head swam and she fainted. Kathy regained consciousness in her room. She was lying under the covers in her favorite pajamas. Strange, I don't remember changing, the girl thought. With difficulty, Kathy got out of bed, put on a robe, and went downstairs. Mrs. Peterson immediately rushed over to her. "Catherine, how are you feeling? You scared us all yesterday," she fussed. "All right, just a heavy head. What happened anyway?" "You fainted. We called a doctor, but he said it was nothing serious, probably from nerves. What would you like for breakfast?" "Yes, probably from nerves. Make me coffee with milk, please." All day Kathy was in a haze. In the evening, Helen came to visit. Kathy told her what had happened yesterday. Her friend was also outraged by her father's behavior. "How awful! Did you call Christopher today?" "I did. He seems to have blocked me," Kathy said sadly. "And he's right. I'm a traitor to him." "Stop it. What does betrayal have to do with it? And what were you supposed to do?" "I should have gone with him probably." "And then what? Hide from your father all your life? He would have found you anyway and brought you home by force. You know that perfectly well." "I know, but Christopher doesn't. I'm so tired, Nellie, you have no idea." "Yes, I can see why. And this headache, some kind of nausea. Maybe you should see a neurologist, get some sedatives." "Nausea," Helen clarified. "How long have you had it?" "Not long, a couple of days, but it's really annoying. Maybe my gastritis flared up from stress." "Kat, when is your period due?" Kathy looked at her friend in confusion. "What do my periods have to do with anything? Are you kidding?" "Now listen, were you careful in that regard with Christopher?" "No, of course not. Should I have been? I read that you can't get pregnant the first time." Helen burst into loud laughter. "Lord, where did you read such nonsense? You can get pregnant the first time and the second. And it wasn't just once for you, I assume?" "No. All right, here's the plan. You need to buy a pregnancy test urgently, while there's still time to have an abortion if necessary." "What? An abortion? I'll never do that in my life. Let my father tear me to pieces, but I won't get rid of Christopher's child." "Wow. Resolute. I respect that. Okay, I'll go to the pharmacy and bring you a couple of tests, and you'll take them in the morning, then you can think." To Kathy's surprise, the tests were positive. All three. The girl was completely bewildered. Her resolve had vanished somewhere, and she thought with horror about what would happen when her father found out. "Nellie, I think I'm done for," she told her friend on the phone. "Positive?" Helen understood immediately. "Yes. What do I do now?" "What you planned. To give birth, of course. It's dangerous to have an abortion at your age. And how do you tell your father this news?" "He'll kill me." "Tell him the child is Nicholas." "Yeah, and I'll tell Nicholas it's from the Holy Spirit?" "No, you have to tell Nicholas the truth. And then there are two options. Either he covers for you and acknowledges the child, or he refuses, and you'll be saved from him, and you won't get married. Either way, you win." "Exactly. You're a genius as always." Kathy thanked her friend and hung up, and immediately dialed Nicholas's number. "Yes, Kitty, I'm listening. Hi, I really need to talk to you." Go ahead, Nicholas offered. No, not on the phone. Okay, let's meet tonight. Let's. Is Pegasus okay for you? Yes, great. See you. Kathy eagerly awaited the evening. Her fate was at stake, quite literally. She called her father and warned him to have dinner without her, because she was having dinner with Nicholas tonight. Her father was pleased with his daughter's behavior and the fact that she had finally accepted his candidate. Kathy arrived at the restaurant exactly at 7. Nicholas was waiting for her at the entrance. Seeing the girl, he stepped towards her and asked anxiously, "Kitty, tell me straight away, is something wrong?" "Yes," Kathy said directly, "and I need to talk to you. Let's go in, sit down, and I'll tell you and explain everything in detail." "All right, but you're scaring me," Nicholas admitted. They sat at a table in the back. Kathy looked around the room and unexpectedly asked, "Do you happen to know who owns this restaurant?" "I do," Nicholas smiled. "It's my restaurant." "No way! Seriously?" Kathy was surprised. "Absolutely. Kitty, can you tell me what happened?" "Yes, I can, I want to, and I must." And Kathy described the situation she was in. "If you refuse to marry me, I'll understand. No problem. You're a good person, and I wouldn't want to lie to you." Nicholas looked at Catherine, barely blinking. He was in shock. The man knew he needed to say something, but he was so stunned that he couldn't find the words. But most importantly, he had to make a decision. But what kind? "Well, that's a serious situation," he began. Then he thought for a moment and added, "I will acknowledge your child as mine. I won't tell your father anything, I promise you. And we will definitely get married as soon as possible before any change in your appearance is visible." Kathy was surprised and even grateful to Nicholas, because if he had refused her now, Kathy would have had to endure a real nightmare orchestrated by her father. And it was far from certain that Kathy wouldn't have lost the child from all that stress, the child she wanted more than anything in the world, and for that child, she was ready for anything. 2 weeks later, Nicholas and Catherine got married. The wedding was loud and grand. Only at the wedding did Kathy learn that her husband was the owner of an entire chain of restaurants, several factories and plants, and was also a co-founder of 2 of her father's banks. This was truly news to her. A month after the wedding, Kathy informed her father that she was expecting a child. The internship automatically had to be postponed. Her father made every effort to postpone the internship for a year. "Dad, how can I go in a year? Leave a small child for a year? Can you even imagine that?" "It's nothing serious, there are nannies," Nicholas interjected. "Respected Mr. Stephen, forgive me, but now my wife and I will decide where she goes and where she doesn't. I will resolve the internship issue, it's not a problem. If necessary, I will compensate you for the expenses. But I, like Kathy, consider it unreasonable to go to another country for a year, leaving a small child without a mother." Kathy looked at her husband gratefully. He turned out to be a truly good person and supported his wife in every way. Moreover, he promised not to touch her until she gave birth. This moment surprised Kathy the most. An adult man was willing to wait more than 6 months for someone else's child. Their family life was quiet and peaceful. In the 3rd month of pregnancy, Nicholas sent Kathy to a sanatorium while he underwent surgery to remove his scar. Kathy enjoyed her wonderful condition but genuinely worried about her husband and called him several times a day. The operation was successful, and Nicholas was soon supposed to bring Kathy home. After another ultrasound, Kathy learned she was having a daughter. She was happy. Even more so now. Daughters are often like their fathers, and Kathy dreamed that her girl would be no exception and would look like Christopher. The future grandfather was also happy that he would have a granddaughter. Only Nicholas didn't express any emotions about this news, but he could be understood. There wasn't much time left until the birth. According to the doctor's calculations, Kathy was supposed to give birth around the 10th or 12th of March. A different date was given to Mr. Stephen, the 10th or 12th of May. Kathy and Nicholas agreed to pass the child off as 7 months old so that her father wouldn't have any questions about the timing. Today is the 8th of March. Kathy moved around the house with difficulty due to her huge belly. She felt great and her mood was excellent. Nicholas had gone to work and Kathy was sorting through baby clothes, preparing them for the maternity hospital. Suddenly, she felt a pulling pain in her lower abdomen and immediately called her husband. Nick, I don't feel well. Maybe I should call an ambulance. That's why you shouldn't have let the housekeeper go to her relatives for a week and stayed home alone. I'll call an ambulance and I'll be there myself soon. Don't do anything, just rest. Okay, I'll wait. Nicholas arrived with the ambulance and went to the maternity hospital with his wife. Kathy was getting worse. She didn't understand why the doctors decided to do a C-section. Do whatever you want, just save my little girl, Kathy begged and cried. Calm down, Mom. Everything will be all right. Kathy woke up in the ward. Nicholas was sitting beside her, holding her hand and dozing in the armchair. Nick, Kathy called out faintly. How did it go? Nicholas lowered his eyes and didn't look at his wife. Kathy didn't understand what was happening. Nick, what? Tell me, she demanded. Kitty, they didn't save our little girl, Nicholas said, barely holding back tears. How can that be? They said everything would be all right. I don't know what happened. I don't understand these things. The doctor will explain when he comes to examine you. This can't be. No! Kathy screamed across the ward and burst into hysterical tears. 2 nurses ran into the ward, then the doctor. Kathy was given an injection and she fell asleep. 4 days later, Kathy was discharged home. There was no need for her to stay in the maternity hospital anymore. Around her, children were crying and weeping, other people's children, living children. Kathy's heart was breaking into pieces. She wanted nothing else, dreamed of nothing. Now she didn't care at all what would happen next. Before being discharged, the doctor said that the birth had been difficult and that Kathy would never have children again. Never have children. These words echoed in her head like a sentence. Kathy repeated them mentally and aloud and could think of nothing else. Nicholas, seeing his wife's state, decided to send her to a sanatorium in Switzerland. Kathy meekly agreed. Kathy spent 6 months at the sanatorium and almost fully recovered. At least she returned feeling alive and with a desire to live on, albeit without children. After a short stay at home, Kathy went to England for her internship, then to Belgium. During this time, Nicholas visited his wife several times, and they developed a good relationship. A year later, Kathy returned home and slowly began to get involved in her father's affairs. Her father had suddenly begun to decline, his health failing more and more often, and 6 months after Kathy's return, her father made the final decision to hand over the business to his daughter. Now Kathy's new, very busy business life began. She fully immersed herself in the business and very quickly became a worthy replacement for Mr. Stephen. 17 years passed. Kathy was now exclusively known as Catherine and confidently not only managed all of her father's projects but also expanded them. Mr. Stephen had died 6 years ago, and Kathy had no other blood relatives left in this world. Her only close person was her husband Nicholas, who had never disappointed Catherine in all these years. This evening, they decided to have dinner with Nick at their restaurant Pegasus. Lately, Catherine had been so busy with work that she rarely saw her husband, but today she had a relatively free evening and the couple decided to spend it together. Kathy arrived at the restaurant earlier than her husband and, sitting at the table, scrolled through the latest news on her tablet. A young waitress passed by and, stumbling, nearly fell near Catherine, managing to lean on her chair. "Careful, you'll break something like that," Kathy said kindly. "I'm so sorry." "For what?" Kathy didn't understand. "I bumped into you accidentally. I've only been working here, or rather moonlighting, for 2 weeks. It was awkward. Please don't tell the owner or I'll be fired." "I won't tell, don't worry. Everyone makes mistakes." "Thank you. Have a good evening." Kathy looked at the girl carefully. It felt like she had seen her somewhere, or knew her from somewhere. Strange. Where could I have crossed paths with such a young person? Kathy thought, but her thoughts were interrupted by Nicholas, who entered the hall. After dinner, when they returned home, Kathy took off her jacket and was about to hang it in the closet, but saw that the pocket flap was turned down. Kathy didn't like it when things looked untidy, and she straightened it. But some force made her check the pocket, and she found a piece of paper folded several times inside. Kathy turned the paper over in her hands. The paper was clearly from a squared notebook. She hadn't written on such paper in a very long time. So what was this, and where did it come from in her pocket? Kathy slowly unfolded the paper and saw a few lines of text, which were clearly addressed to her. "Catherine, your daughter, whom you gave birth to on March 8th, is alive. Your husband Nicholas arranged for you to think she died during childbirth. If you want details, call this number," and then a phone number was listed. She couldn't believe her eyes. Her daughter was alive. With trembling hands, Catherine carefully folded the paper and hid it in her purse. Her world had been turned upside down. She couldn't understand how such a thing was even possible. Such an attentive, caring, loving, truly devoted man like Nicholas couldn't have done this. Kathy didn't want to believe it, but the person who wrote the note couldn't be so mistaken. They even got the date of birth right. If it were just someone's cruel joke, the joker would have done it much earlier. Why now? No, something was clearly wrong here, and Kathy knew she wouldn't be able to live peacefully now without figuring out the situation. Nicholas entered the bedroom, and Kathy flinched at the sight of her husband. Now she looked at him with different eyes. Why would he do that? Kathy tried to reason. Because he knew it was someone else's child? He didn't want to raise someone else's and just got rid of it? And he wanted to marry me? It seems clear enough. But can you just abandon a child? And how do you live after that? How do you sleep at night knowing there's a person somewhere? And what kind of person? To Nick, she's nobody, so he doesn't care. But he saw how I suffered. It turns out he didn't feel sorry for me either. I married a monster. "Kitty, are you all right?" Nicholas asked, sitting down next to his wife. Yes, everything's fine. Sorry, I just had an idea. I'm going to do some work." "Work? It's already past 1. It's nothing serious. You go to bed, I'll be quick." Kathy left the bedroom and headed to her study. She didn't feel like sleeping at all, and she needed to think, and she didn't want to talk to Nicholas in this state. She added the phone number from the note to her contacts and checked her messengers. In one of them, that number was currently online. Should I write or not? Catherine thought. And finally, impatience won, and she wrote, "Good evening. My name is Catherine Davis." She hadn't changed her last name after marriage. "You provided this number as a contact if I wanted to know details. When and where would it be convenient for you to meet me?" Kathy looked at the screen hopefully and waited for a reply. Suddenly, she saw that someone was typing, and a minute later, she saw a message on the screen. "We can meet right now if you like." Now? Yes, I want to. Kathy was full of determination. She wouldn't sleep until morning anyway, so why sit around doing nothing? Then come to this address. An address where they would be waiting for her was then provided. "I can be there in 20 to 30 minutes. Is that okay?" "Yes, perfectly. Thank you." Kathy took her phone and quickly went upstairs. She peeked into the bedroom. Nicholas was already asleep. Kathy went into the dressing room, quickly changed, went down to the garage and drove out of the yard. She arrived at the specified address exactly 20 minutes later. Kathy didn't know this area well, and besides, the private sector didn't appeal to her much. She got out of the car and walked up to the gate. She was about to open it when she suddenly heard behind her, "Well, hello, Mom." Kathy turned around, saw the same waitress, and lost consciousness. She woke up in the house. Apparently, she had been carried here when she fell. A woman around 55 was sitting nearby, knitting something on needles. She was painfully thin, barely managing to stay upright, but continued knitting slowly. "You're awake?" "Yes." Kathy propped herself up and sat. She looked around. The room was poor, very poor. It was clear the renovation had been done 20 years ago, no less. She looked at the woman again and asked, "Excuse me, could I have some water?" "You can." The woman immediately offered a cup of water. "And who are you?" "I am the one who raised your daughter as my own." Kathy felt as if she had been doused with cold water. She jumped up on the bed. "Please tell me. Tell me. How did it happen that I was told one thing, but in reality it was completely different?" "Your husband saw to it," the woman said quietly. "When you gave birth, he went to the head doctor and immediately said that you wouldn't be taking the child. The head doctor tried to persuade him, saying that the girl was born perfectly healthy, weighing 3,700 grams, 53 centimeters tall, an excellent baby. But your husband said he was ready to pay any amount of money for the child to stay in this hospital forever, and for his wife not to know that she had given birth to a living and healthy baby." Kathy was already crying, listening to the woman's story. It was unbearable to hear, but she remained silent, not daring to interrupt or ask a single question. She had to hear everything to the end. I know he paid a very large sum for those times, and we swapped the documents stating that the girl died from asphyxiation during childbirth. I couldn't have children, and my husband and I decided this was our chance. I persuaded the head doctor to give the child to me so that this little beauty wouldn't end up in an orphanage. I know what an orphanage is like. I grew up in one myself. The head doctor himself didn't want to send such a good baby to an infant home, so he agreed immediately. I knew who my Olivia's real parents were, but I kept silent until the end. And now I have stage 4 cancer, and I don't have much time left. I don't want my girl to be left alone when she has a living mother, especially since I know that what happened then wasn't your fault. I saw you at the discharge. I wanted so much to tell you the truth, but the head doctor immediately warned that whoever told you the truth wouldn't live long. Those were your husband's words. And I was scared. I told Olivia everything when I found out she got a job at your husband's restaurant. Such irony of fate, isn't it? And I don't have much time left anyway. I would have told her eventually. And then this coincidence happened. I explained that you are as much a victim as she is. She has no reason to resent you, and she wanted to meet you. You won't abandon her, will you? Never in my life, Catherine finally found her voice. You have no idea what you've done for me. I've been cursing myself all these years, thinking I was to blame for the child not surviving, thinking it was my punishment for lying to my father, for getting pregnant out of wedlock. Oh God, what haven't I thought? You've given me back the meaning of life that I lost many years ago. I don't know how to thank you. Are you sure nothing can be done about your illness? I have money. I'll pay for any operation. Wait, don't chatter so fast. No operation can help me now. For me, the most important thing is to know that you won't abandon my daughter. Our daughter, the woman corrected herself. I can't abandon her. I already lost her once, even though it wasn't my fault. Good, so I wasn't mistaken about you. Olivia, the woman called somewhere into the room. Come here, sunshine. The same girl entered the room. Kathy got out of bed, walked over to her daughter, took her hands. Suddenly, she fell to her knees and began to cry. Forgive me, please forgive me. If I had known that my husband would turn out to be such a monster, I would never have trusted him in my life. Forgive me, forgive me. Get up, don't cry. Mom told me everything. I know you're not to blame, you have nothing to apologize for. Yes, there is something to apologize for. If I hadn't been a coward, you would have had a completely different life, a different childhood, a different education, everything different. Is that the most important thing? I'm sorry that… What childhood? What education? I think it's much more important to grow up in a family where you are truly loved, in a family where everyone is there for each other and will never betray you. Money doesn't provide any of that. I had a good childhood and good parents who gave me real love, care, affection, things that you can never buy with any money. Yes, you're right, absolutely right. I will never say that again. She turned to the woman who had raised her daughter. Excuse me, what is your name? My name is Mrs. Smith. Girls, I have a great idea. Mrs. Smith, Olivia, we're packing our things and moving to my house, and no excuses are accepted, Kathy said and added, we'll only take the most valuable things dear to our hearts. We'll buy everything else, and I don't want to hear anything. I owe both of you a great debt. They moved into the house where Kathy had grown up and now lived there as a trio. Catherine divorced Nicholas. He begged his wife's forgiveness, then Olivia's, but Catherine couldn't forgive such a betrayal. Now a completely new life began for Kathy, the life she had dreamed of all these years and which she thought she had lost forever. But somewhere deep in Kathy's soul, there had always been a flicker of hope that not all was lost, and hope did not fail her.